to First Things First. It is a Monday morning. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright.
Do you guys know what today is?
What's the day after the NBA season ended?
It is, well, 3 days after the NBA season ended. However, it is our 200th show.
Oh, get out of here.
Well, 100 show milestone.
I have a lot of moisturizing cream on my
No
hands.
problem, Jenna. I'm used to your hands being a little greasy. It's good.
That is weird.
Congratulations,
I can cash in my ticket then. I won the bet. One of my buddies had bet me significant amount of money that I wouldn't be able to make it 200 shows with Nick. I made it. I told him I was going to make it.
There you go. Absolutely.
Very nicely done. I will say congratulations to both of you, and I apologize to you. After 9 months of me being on the show bragging about how much I love volleyball and how good I'm at volleyball, I got a text from CC inviting me to a volleyball tournament, to which I responded.
National volleyball tournament.
Yeah. What did I respond?
Silence.
Silence. Yeah, I think you got a text and then you got a FaceTime. I think you got a lot, and it was like, oh, sorry,
no,
I didn't have my phone.
I was at the pool with my little one, so I apologize for that. Next time that tournament comes down to the Tribeca, New York City area, I will be there.
Harper and Quinn, we're going to fact check that after the show.
Fact check that. All right. Let us chat some basketball. It is the Monday after the last NBA game of the season.
A lot of pretty people there, Jenny. You missed them.
Okay, that's on me. You're right. Because I'm all about the pretty people. The time for dust to settle and for baseball to take center stage. Oh, but wait, we are nowhere near done with how this NBA season ended. Over the weekend, Friday, the Warriors won their third NBA title in 4 years, sweeping the Cavs. 5 minutes after that, LeBron James comes to the press conference podium with a soft cast on his shooting hand. Reports surfaced he punched a whiteboard after the Game 1 loss, after the frustration. So let's discuss this from all angles. Chris, I'll start with you. How much do you blame LeBron for hurting himself and, as an extension of that, the team?
Well, Jenna, you said it all right there. It's something that's self-inflicted. It's something that with a little more self-control. So I'm going to tell you that I'm a little disappointed in LeBron. I'm not disappointed that he acted out and had some type of emotion, because being in an NFL locker room, seeing NBA players, knowing that emotion is a huge part of sport, but you are responsible for your body. Denny Green used to tell us that. Like, when you leave this office, if you're in a certain condition, if you're injured, I expect you to be back tomorrow morning for treatment. But if you're not, I expect you to be in the same condition tomorrow when you arrive. Now, I would say in my years in the NFL, I've seen more things punched. I have seen things thrown, and I've just never been about that. I've never said anything to the people. I just didn't think that those things were necessary. And this takes me back to this first of four series with Golden State, when Kyrie Irving gets hurt. It's like, man, if the game hadn't gone to overtime. Remember that? That was the first time they played.
He was already playing on a gimpy knee. If people don't remember, he was on a minutes restriction in the conference finals. He was supposed to be on a minutes restriction in the NBA finals. It was a close game. They had a chance to win it. He plays above the minutes restriction. Then it goes to overtime. He keeps playing. And in overtime, he breaks his kneecap.
Right. So if the Cavs, if they're able to close it out, they're with a rebound or something else, or a timeout, or a dish out to LeBron, and LeBron finishes off Golden State in game number 1. It's a huge what if. And this is what happens in sports. When you don't have the type of conclusion, you start going back and saying, okay, well, what if this would have happened? Ultimately, LeBron is responsible. Regardless of what anyone else would say, LeBron is responsible. He's responsible for his own emotion. He's responsible for how he reacts. Now, for me, I'm a little surprised, because LeBron, for the most part, he shoots basketball right-handed, but he eats and he writes left-handed. To me, if he was going to throw a punch, I thought he would have thrown a punch with his left hand, which would have affected his off-shooting hand. Now, it's fairly obvious that he had some type of injury. Well, how is it obvious? Because LeBron is not one of the superstars or players we've ever seen in sports that ever made any type of excuse about an injury. He's coming off in his 15th season playing all 82 games. Now, were there games he could have sat? Yes. Did he ever make any type of excuses? No. So I know the injury was significant. And him having the brace on after game number 4 in the press conference, that right there is even more proof that, because he wouldn't wear the brace, and they wouldn't just make up this story. I do believe in him that much.
Well, and there's a great side.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And there's a great side-by-side that I think that was put out, I saw it on Twitter, of LeBron's left hand versus his right hand in game 4. And his left hand, you can see his veins, you can see those tendons that run up. His right hand is clearly swollen. I can tell you this. with utter certainty from talking to people after Game 4. LeBron did not want this information out there. LeBron's people were not the ones that leaked this information. LeBron was more comfortable with the narrative being he didn't play that great of a Game 4 than the narrative being he injured himself. So it not only is like, did LeBron not want this as an excuse? He didn't want this out there. The information was out there before he put on that soft cast, and then once it was out there, he ended up wearing the soft cast. But I was told he wouldn't have worn it otherwise. But to answer your question, how much do I blame him? Listen, man, you don't get a pass for a self-inflicted injury. And when you're LeBron, you don't really, part of LeBron's path to being considered the greatest player ever, one of the first pieces of information I use when I make that argument is his durability and longevity and the seemingly imperviousness to injury he has over every other player.
Yes.
So if his performance is hindered by an injury, much less an injury that didn't happen on the court, but happened off the court, of course that's a black mark. Of course that's a negative. Like, there is no... Now, you can spin it the other way, which is even after the injury, guy averaged almost a triple-double in the finals, shot over 50%. He played really well with a broken hand, but not nearly good enough for the team to be able to compete for the title. And your what-ifs... I can go down a list of them. There's some great what-ifs that this now gets added to.
So he's cognizant enough to know that he doesn't want the injury out there as an excuse. He doesn't want anyone using any excuses for himself. But yet, like, where was that cognizance, or where was that, like, frame of mind when he's punching a whiteboard out of sheer frustration, knowing that you might need your hand to play 3 or potentially 4 or 5 more basketball games?
It is the reality, Jenna. And obviously he has a great deal of self-control, but LeBron told us in between Game 1 and Game 2, that would be your answer. Well, what is it, Chris? It's one of the biggest losses he ever had in his life. It affected him in that kind of way that he did punch something, and he told us that. A lot of times players don't tell us the truth. Oh, no, it's another loss. We're going to move on to game number 2. But that's the only reasoning behind it. He would qualify that as one of the greatest losses, which his overall reaction was played out with him punching the whiteboard.
And the part of that game that he keeps saying taken from us, he was not punching, again, according to the people I've talked to that are as close to LeBron as you can get to. It was not about JR's mistake. It was not about
he wasn't disappointed with
I think he was disappointed with all of them, but the part that he was furious about was the call. The overturned call. Right. That's the part that he...
That gets lost.
That's the part that he makes the point on. I thought I read that play better than any play I'd read in my career. He also, or at least people around him, agree with the point I made, which was it was an illegal review.
Yes.
That it wasn't just a missed call, but the referees had to go outside of the bounds of the rules to review it. So you talk about what-ifs. There are great what-ifs in NBA history. What if the Thunder never trade James Harden? What if the Thunder don't blow a 3-1 lead to the Warriors and Durant doesn't leave? But just refereeing-based what-ifs. Man, what if a phantom, what they believe is a phantom call, is not called on Bill Laimbeer at the end of the '88 finals on Kareem when the Pistons are up 3-2? Then Magic Johnson's 4-5 in the finals, and the Pistons potentially have a 3-peat instead of a 2-peat. What if in 1994... first year without Michael Jordan, when it's 2-2 in the Eastern Conference semifinals, Hugh Hollins doesn't make an absurd foul call on Scottie Pippen on Hubert Davis? Do the Bulls win a title without Michael Jordan? What if in the 2002 Western Conference Finals, when the Kings are up 3-2 on the Lakers don't shoot 27 fourth-quarter free throws in order to tie that series? Like, there are some referee-based what-ifs that we see the butterfly effect on. And what if this call is not overturned, and then the Cavs win, and LeBron doesn't break his hand, and he's coming off the best playoff game of his life? Like, there's a lot of what-ifs that now led to a broken hand and a sweep.
As a gambling man, that's hard for you to... You can't really buy into it. We're all about it's all about what-ifs. You think the series could have been different had he not broken his hand?
The series wouldn't have been different as far as the result. Now, how many games they would have played, I think, would have been different. But ultimately, Golden State would have gotten their 3rd title in 4 years. But from another sports perspective, we saw Tom Brady play with a bad hand in a playoff game. and he still was able to get the job done. And that's the difference, sometime with some of the greatest of the greats. How much pain can they play with? And that's what we saw Tom Brady. Tom Brady didn't make any excuses. LeBron didn't try to make any excuses, but there was a series of games. And if he would have if there was only a one game after that, game number 2, then we wouldn't even would have known about it.
Well, and what I will just say is this. I think the Warriors would have won this series no matter what. Going into it, I said Warriors in 5. You said Warriors in 4. We thought the Warriors were a heavy favorite. But if after game 1, the Cavs have stolen home court and LeBron is playing, he was playing at the highest level of his career going into the NBA Finals.
Now, he wouldn't have 51.
He would have had 49.
Yes.
It would have been 49. It was 49, 8, and 8 where he was sitting going. If they have won that game, we are talking about this being a long series and potentially the greatest moment of LeBron's career. Instead, it turns into as short of a series as you can get and arguably the second worst moment of his career. That's the punch of the whiteboard and the overturned call.
All right, we will get to all of this from the Warriors' perspective as well. Coming up, how will this Golden State dynasty be remembered in NBA history? That's next. First things first. We're going to get to the Warriors dynasty in a second, but first, Dustin Johnson holing out for the Eagle on 18 to win the St. Jude Classic yesterday. DJ returns to number 1 in the world. Good news, he won. Bad news, no one that's ever won the week before has ever won.
Yeah, you see that right there, that arc on that ball right there, Nick? That's what you call a confused ball. Well, what is that? Ball don't go left, it don't go right, well, it just goes straight.
An Eagle on 18 to win the tournament?
Oh, no, he was on fire. Cruised through the front 9, shot even par, but hit the turbo on hole number 12.
Guys, check this out.
Stop.
Young baller, dropping the D. Textbook crossover. Future little Kyrie here in the making. What?
Oh, no. We got to blur out that little man's face. The defender. That ain't fair to do a youth like that,
So
see?
little.
Man, that ain't the kid's fault. That's his dad's fault. Man, your dad ain't no good athlete.
Hey.
Oh, my goodness. He got a nice haircut, though.
We're just running. We're playing the kid's
That was a mean
dad's not
crossover
good
right there.
athlete.
Yeah,
All right,
well,
get
it ain't the
excited,
kid's
guys.
fault.
Here we go. Brazil taking on Austria in a World Cup warm-up match. Neymar destroys the defender, finishes the goal. Don't forget, we kick off Thursday on Fox and FS1. It's all going down.
So excited. This is big news for Brazil, though. Neymar being injured, now back playing. He was in question headed into the World Cup.
That's why this highlight's so important. It's not, I mean, listen, Neymar is one of the 4 best soccer players alive, so the goal's great. But there was worry after he got hurt in this Paris Saint-Germain game a few months ago if he was going to be available for the World Cup. We now know he is. He's one of the 3 biggest players in the world right now.
You guys are awesome.
We follow sports, Jenna Wolf.
That's it. What's up? Back to the Golden State Warriors. So on paper, in the history books, and at times on the court, their 4-game sweep over the Cavs seemed effortless. They have now won back-to-back NBA titles and their 3rd in 4 seasons. Kevin Durant won his 2nd straight Finals MVP, and if a dynasty wasn't already born, it certainly is now. CeCe, how will history remember this Warriors dynasty, which doesn't appear to be ending anytime soon?
Regardless if you don't like the Warriors, you do like the Warriors, you have to be fair with them. And you have to compare them, I would say, to 2 or 3 teams that I've seen. That was the Lakers team with Kareem and Magic, worthy, and the Bulls team. And I would say this team. Those are the 3 best teams that I've seen, I'll say, in the last 30 years. So what they've accomplished, and I won't even discuss how they got there. Well, Kevin Durant came after 2 of them. But I believe that right there, their legacy will be attached to the end of it. Right now, they're one of the 3 best teams that's ever played the game with the collection of stars and the talent that they have. You can compare them. You could go roster, you can go coach, like you could break down organizations, and I think that the Warriors, they would be right there. I think there are some teams more talented. I thought the Lakers and Kareem and them were a little more talented, especially their bench than them. And then, of course, when you have Michael Jordan, you have to consider him because he had the run, and he was Michael Jordan. He never lost in the finals. So I think those 3 different, in the last 30 years for me, those are the 3 best teams I've seen.
All right, so I agree this is absolutely one of the best teams we've ever seen, maybe the best team we've ever seen. But I do not think this is a dynasty yet because this is a different team than went to the first 2 NBA finals. So in order, the dynasty has to be who are your best players, and they have to be consistent throughout. That's why it's Magic and Kareem with the Lakers when they went to 9 NBA Finals and when they won 5 rings. Scottie and MJ, you're overlooking one, I think, or maybe you don't elevate them to that level. Kobe and Shaq, when they went to those 3, when they went to 4, but they won 3 in a row.
Right. I just thought the first Lakers team. I didn't want to have 2 Lakers teams in there.
Fair enough. So, so to me, this will be a dynasty if they stay together. But you're not a dynasty when you've won 2 rings. And the Kevin Durant Warriors have won 2 rings.
Wait, you think in 20 years people are going to remember that Durant wasn't there on the first one? They're going to be like, oh, wait, wasn't Kevin Durant? No, he was.
Of course, first of all, yes, absolutely, they will know that Kevin Durant was not there.
We'll have the end of the story then, so I think that it will either change the number of years, but that's what we'll do to make sure.
You look overall and say this Golden State team minus Kevin Durant.
I just don't.
Well, this is the thing. I think you're making an honest point. If they don't win anymore, this is all we have.
Correct.
But then Nick would be right.
If they don't win anymore, it's not a dynasty. Now, 3 out of 4 would have been if it was Steph, Clay, Draymond. But when the best player is added midway through, you have to reset the dynasty clock. Like, now, if you want to say organizationally, but I don't think when...
I think you make a great point, and I haven't heard that. I mean, you have to reset it because... You're right. Their best player.
Their best player. Like if KD hadn't been this good and Steph was still the
it was somewhat like
force,
Dwayne Wade, even though it was separated. Dwayne Wade, like his championships with LeBron,
are totally separate.
Totally separate.
And so like the reason the Spurs were looked at over such a long stretch of time, even though they never won back-to-back, was their best player was the same every title until the very last one. Like by then, Duncan was a supporting player. But when the Spurs won in 99, 03, 05, 07, that was a dynasty, even though they never won back-to-back because the best player, the coach, were consistent throughout.
And the team kind of grew organically. They didn't take stars from other teams. They took role players and or drafted and developed their own players.
And this isn't, listen, I was wrong about the Warriors a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I said they should have stood pat. I thought it was the greatest team I'd ever seen that won 73 games. They came this close to winning and back-to-back NBA Finals. I said I wouldn't have changed anything. Obviously, that was laughable. Kevin Durant going there is the ultimate cheat code. I was dead wrong about that. And I do think it might be the most talented team I've ever seen. But back-to-back titles is not a dynasty. And 3 out of 4 is only a dynasty if it's the same people involved. Like, they will be a dynasty, I believe, because I think they will win either next year or the next 2 years, or they could rip off an unbelievable run here. But you can't add your best player midway through and then say, but we get the credit dynastically from the first 2.
Wouldn't that be the case if Kevin Durant was light years above everyone else on the team? But can't you make a case that Steph and Kevin Durant are for the most part fairly on par, that Steph could easily be the superstar on this team and you're adding
Sure, but not in the NBA Finals they haven't been. In the regular season, you can make an argument for either one. In the finals,
the guy that got the MVP,
both times,
we added him.
Right, and he was clearly their best guy last year, and I thought he was their best guy except for in one quarter and in Game 4 this year.
You would have a strong argument if they had split, and especially maybe if Steph had gotten the first one.
Okay.
But now with KD, being clearly, when you're playing against the best player in the world in LeBron, it has stood out that KD and LeBron are the 2 best players. And in the series, because he was on the winner, KD was awarded the trophy as far as the MVP.
I mean, when we talk about dynasties in sports, I know the organization, we call it the Bulls dynasty or whatever, but we are talking about the star players. We talk about the Yankees in the late 90s. Jenna, Jeter, Pudge, Bernie Williams, right? Like I said, Posada, pardon me. And Mariano Rivera on the latter half of that.
Yvonne wanted to be on that team.
I know. Like when we talk about the Lakers, we are talking about Kareem and Magic, and then we're talking about Shaq and Kobe. We're talking about the Celtics. We're talking about Bird and McHale. Jordan, or the Bulls, it's obviously Pippen and Jordan. Like, we're not talking about organizationally. And organizationally, the key piece was added 2 years ago, and you can't have a 2-year dynasty.
How many more rings does this Warriors team? One more and it's a dynasty?
Yeah.
You both agree?
I mean, it's so tough. When do they get it? You know, if they get it in 3 or 4 years, when I say it was a dynasty, it's gonna be close. It's going to be hard if they win in the next 3 years to say that this wasn't some type of dynasty.
Of course.
Well, just the years and everything, but man, this start winning 2, in the first. It would be hard to not have them in the conversation as far as not being a dynasty.
All right, we'll talk about this, I'm sure. Coming up, though, D. Wade chimes in on where LeBron should end up this offseason. Hear from him next on First Things First. Time for some stories to start your morning. With LeBron's future in question, Kevin Love is trying to keep him in Cleveland. Love says he wants to play with LeBron for the rest of his career. Memo to Kevin Love, you got an uphill battle, buddy. CC, what are the chances LeBron stays in Cleveland?
Slim. I'll say less than 10%. I mean, unless one of his sons,
so you're saying
Bron,
there's a chance.
The 13-year-old comes home and say, hey, Dad, you know something? I like my AAU team I'm playing on. I want to play at St. V. I want to play the same high school where you played. That would have a pull on LeBron and on his mom and on the grandmother. But I would say less than 10%.
I say the only shot is if the entire family's unanimous that they want to stay. Because from a basketball perspective, from a trust perspective with ownership, from a teammate perspective, from a championship perspective, Cleveland's his worst option. The only reason would be is if his sons and his wife say, we desperately want to stay here.
Or if the rest of the team retires.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I'd say no shot.
All right, to Kyle Korver now. To say he had a rough NBA Finals would be a bit of an understatement. The guy shot 1 for 16 in 4 games of the Finals. 1 shot, 4 games. If I did the math, what is that, Nick? Like
6.25%.
6.25% was what I was going to say. Nick said it first. Nick, how bad was Korver's Finals performance?
It was somehow worse than last year's. Last year, they thought he wasn't playable. They only put him on the court in key moments or in certain moments. He obviously missed the shot that helped change the NBA Finals. I mean, this year, he didn't make a shot in games 2, 3, and 4, and in game 1, he made 1. Like, he played as poorly as you can offensively after being maybe their second best player during the Eastern Conference playoffs. He shot 46% from 3 until the NBA Finals, and then he shot 11% from 3 in the NBA Finals.
The Warriors did an amazing job defensively. You have to give them a lot of credit. They know his style. He is like a poor man's version of Klay Thompson, who they play against all the time. So they play up on the three-point line. They dare him to dribble the ball, and then in matchups on defense, they go right at him. So they make Ty Lue put him in a pickle as far as do we play him, and he lost his confidence after game number 1.
It was terrible, man.
All right, moving on to someone who did actually take shots and make shots, Steph Curry. Coming off a rough game 3, he had an excellent game 4, scored 37 points. He hit 7 three-pointers. CC, what'd you think of Steph's Finals performance?
I thought it was a classic Steph performance. I thought that he came out and was very, very aggressive in the beginning. I thought that was very important. But this is what Steph Curry does. Now, he hasn't had the type of consistency that we would want in the NBA Finals, but his numbers, when you look at the totality of them, his numbers are good. But with KD, with Klay, it's hard to get 30 points every single game. But I was really shocked because this is the first time he really had played well on the road.
Listen, this is the only reason he's not Finals MVP. I shouldn't say the only reason, but the 1 for 14 to start game 3 while Durant was going off is what switched the narrative. But this is the second straight Finals where Steph's been really good. I mean, 28, 6, and 7 is what he gave you. Now, his shooting percentage is not what he would have wanted it to be. And Durant's shooting percentage was excellent, which is why he won the Finals MVP. But last year, he almost averaged a triple-double in the Finals on more than 25 points per game. In 2015, he was the best player on that team and should have won it that year. But this guy was clearly the best.
All right, finally, Kevin Durant won his second straight Finals MVP award. KD averaged over 28 points, 10 boards, and 7 assists in these NBA Finals, including a triple-double in Game 4. Nick, did they give the Finals MVP to the right guy? Because it was Steph early on.
It was Steph early on. Steph got 4 of the votes for Finals MVP. KD got 7 of them. There's only 11 people that vote. It's because they got to do it quick now. Like they got to do it basically as the final game is ending, so they can't do 100 voters. I mean, I thought this was a no-brainer. I tweeted out from the game, to me, KD is the clear Finals MVP. Maybe Steph will get it as a make good for 2015. And I think the people that voted for Steph, it was about a make good. Because KD averaged more points, more rebounds, more assists. He shot 53% from the field compared to Steph's 40% from the field. And he was better defensively. Like, in every single box, KD was better. He also had the iconic moment of the series at the end of Game 3, while Steph did have the great quarter at the end of Game 2. Yes, I mean, it would have been, to me, it would have been ridiculous to give the MVP to anyone else.
Yeah, the two things that really stood out to me was the shooting percentage. When you're shooting 53 compared to 40, that right there is a huge difference, and it's going to be hard for the person shooting 40 to be able to overcome that. But if you look at the one thing we said critical about KD in the Houston series was, yeah, he scored a lot of points, but he wasn't a playmaker. When they went isolation, the offense kind of slowed down. He didn't create plays. But he averaged more assists in the finals than Steph did. So he had to drastically address that offensive. And when I get the ball, I'm also going to be a playmaker, not just a scorer. Those are the two things. Shooting percentage and his playmaking ability made it obvious to me why he should get MVP.
The KD jumped his game up in two areas from the Western Conference playoffs to the NBA Finals. Until the NBA Finals and the playoffs, he was shooting less than 30% from three. In the finals, he shot better than 40% from three. And that obviously those huge, long, deep threes in game 3 that were a huge part of them winning that game. And the assist thing, see? Like, you could not be more right about the assists. That he was giving you less than 4 assists per game going into the NBA Finals, and in the finals he averaged almost 8 a game. Like, that, the jump in the playmaking was enormous because it made the Warriors offense, even when it was running through him, look very Warriors-y with the ball movement and the ball skipping, as opposed to against Houston, where it would be ISOs for Kevin Durant.
How big of a deal is it to win the MVP award at the end of the Finals MVP award? I mean, is it that big of a deal if you already have the title? Well,
this is the thing. When you're playing in an era with LeBron and you're playing on the same team as Steph, and this is the way there's certain sports, they keep certain numbers and certain trophies have more relevance than other ones.
Okay.
And in the NBA, the regular season MVP is very, very important, far more important than all-star games. And when you start getting to the finals, the MVP of the finals becomes very, very important, especially if you happen to have somebody. If you have a title, you happen to have MVP during the regular season, some of these other things, especially when you're not considered the best player in the world. To be back-to-back MVP against LeBron James and the Cavs, I believe it's the most significant thing that Kevin Durant has done in his athletic career.
And we got to do the counterfactual for a moment. What if he had gotten neither of these MVPs and they'd won both titles? Then the narrative about him going to Golden State is very different.
You're right.
By winning these 2 Finals MVPs, if
he joined Steph.
Right. When we were having the dynasty conversation last segment, if he hadn't won either of these Finals MVPs and was just a supporting actor in this movie, I might say, yeah, it's a Warriors dynasty. They've won 3 out of 4. Because he's been, though, the leading man in these finals, to me, this feels like the Kevin Durant version of the Warriors. And man, listen, winning back-to-back Finals MVPs is special. It's a special rarefied air. I mean, basically since 1990, and I could go further back, but it's just Jordan, Hakeem, Shaq, Kobe, LeBron, and now Durant. And those also happen to be, aside from Tim Duncan, the 6 of the 7 best players of the last 25, 30 years. So, I mean, yeah, it's an important one.
Okay, back to LeBron James now and the thought bubble that currently resides over his shoulder. What do I do next year? Other bubbles include, this soft cast is itchy, and how did A.Smith not know the score? LeBron is a free agent this summer. What's going to factor into his decision? Is it more rings? Is it a better lifestyle? As Nick and Cece said, a better high school for his boys? Former teammate Dwayne Wade weighed in on LeBron's decision.
For me, I mean, I don't think it's a basketball thing. I mean, obviously he's shown this year he could get to the finals, you know, no matter what the circumstances are. I don't really think for him the basketball decision of saying, oh, let me go team up with 3 all-stars. And I think at this point in his life, it's more so of a lifestyle thing of, you know, where my family's going to be the most comfortable at, where I'm going to be the happiest at. Because basketball-wise, he's so great, he can bring along and take along whoever.
I will be asking this question in 7,000 different ways and 400 different languages over the course of the next couple of weeks. Where do you think LeBron is going to go, CC?
And Jenna, every time I'm going to try to have a smile on my face, say, Jenna, that's a good question.
Also, are you worried about the Cavs this year?
I want to know, are you asking him where he thinks he's going to go or where he should go?
Where LeBron should go.
Because those might be 2 different things. If you were giving the one thing is a prediction of where he will go. Another thing is, and what I'd really like to hear is, if LeBron came to Chris Carter and said, where should I go? Where's your advice for him to go? Maybe they're the same, maybe not.
I think there's some very compelling stories. I think what they have in the process in Philadelphia it's intriguing. Houston being a healthy Chris Paul away from potentially I think that's a perfect situation for him to battle the Warriors. But I think ultimately, if I'm thinking about LeBron as a company, if I'm hearing what Dwayne Wade is saying, his best friend potentially in the world, I think he's going to go to the Lakers. And the reason why is I think he likes to be supported by an organization. I think that Magic Johnson being there is very, very important. I think that his brand and what he wants to do after basketball becomes very important. I think his son's overall development, especially his oldest one, is a basketball player in Los Angeles, the AAU circuit, the good high school, an opportunity for him to stay there and grow year-round compared to being in Cleveland during the school year and then being Vegas, L.A. in the offseason. I think all those things lead to saying the Los Angeles Lakers, this is the way they have acquired other great players. So LeBron would be a part of, and that's how they got Kareem. That's how they got a lot of these other great, Shaq.
Wilt.
That's how they got them traded for Kobe on the draft. He was drafted by Charlotte. So I believe that the Los Angeles Lakers, to me, are the leading candidate to land LeBron James.
Okay.
So can I just say, if we were in a pitch meeting right now, I'd be like, yeah, let's go. I'm in. Like, that was, by the way, great sell for the Lakers.
So, well, let me add a little bit of information before I give my opinion.
Okay.
First one is this. Anyone that, and I haven't seen anyone do it yet, but I just want to let people know, anyone that goes on TV today or tomorrow or radio, print, whatever, and claims they know this answer is lying to you. Because LeBron does not know yet. LeBron has not made up his mind, which means he could be swayed. It also means it is such a difficult decision because there is no perfect option.
And one thing we have to really be careful with in this, the first decision, I was very, very fortunate. I was with another network, but I was very, very fortunate to have some of the intel. Now, this is their third decision. They did the second decision better than the first decision. The second decision, only a few people knew about that. They were able to get the letter out and everything. It was done almost perfect. This one, I think, will be even done even better, and there will be even less people that know about where he's going to go.
And right now, no one can know because LeBron doesn't know yet. Now, what I do know is this, from a lunch CC and I had months ago that we've kind of alluded to, but never given full details with someone as connected to the NBA as you can get. That person, while is not on LeBron's circle, just on the NBA circle, was convinced, listen, man, it's Los Angeles. The whole league's known he wants to do Los Angeles. It's Los Angeles, plus Paul George, plus maybe someone else. That's what people have been saying for over a year now. And so I know there is momentum towards there. It sounds to me like Dwayne Wade thinks it's Los Angeles, right? But there are, at least in my eyes, the possibility, especially with the latest Kyrie Irving news, that the Celtics are worried that Kyrie, when he's a free agent in a year, is going to go to New York. I would be surprised if there was not the discussion, as Jonathan Jarks laid out on The Ringer, I thought very well, of a sign and three-way trade, where the Knicks, Celtics, and Cavs are all involved, where the Knicks get Kyrie, where the Cavs get draft picks from the Knicks, and where LeBron goes to Boston. Why would you have to involve the Knicks? Because the Celtics don't have the salaries to match up. So you can't just do Kyrie straight back there. And if they think Kyrie could be leaving anyway in a year, that one is interesting. Philadelphia is the cleanest of the opportunities as far as a cap space standpoint and as far as a ready to win. Houston is the best from a winning standpoint, far and away the hardest from a cap standpoint. Far and away the most difficult to make it work. And in the past, LeBron has said, clear up your cap space, and then I'll consider you. Houston is not in a position, in my opinion, where they could tear the team down for a chance to get LeBron. They could only tear the team down for a guarantee to get LeBron.
So the best news out of all this is LeBron is pretty much able to make his decision. The table is set for him to just decide where he wants to go and what's best for him. There's a few little things here and there, but there could be a three-way trade or whatever he wants to do with it. Talk to me about the timing of this. When does he have to make a decision by? When do we expect to hear this by?
Well, there's one. Let me add this one little nerdy note. June 29th is when he would have to opt into his player deal.
Yes. So he has to let the team know, is he going to opt into the deal, which he's not.
So, well, the only reason he would
if they
is a sign and trade.
Okay.
So if the sign and trade's going to happen, we will know it earlier than free agency because the deadline's June 29th. If the sign and trade's not going to happen, he's just going to have a clean, then it's sometime in the first couple weeks of July. I mean, he's made people wait in the past. It would July 1st open a free agency.
July 1st is NBA free agency, Jenna, so very good question. When he opts into the contract, that is a drop-dead date. Definitely red alert on that. But LeBron typically has made us wait.
Yes.
I think the first decision was done July 9th, and then the next decision was done July 10th. So he's typically had a little period in there, and that, as far as what he's saying about Houston, they haven't cleared up that cap space. I think the opt-in thing is going to really tell Boston, and that can be done. But to think that a kid in Kyrie Irving that grew up across the bridge in New Jersey wouldn't want to play for a franchise like the Knicks. Also, as a kid, he grew up wanting to play for Duke. All right? He ended up going to Duke. Now saying that he potentially might want to play for the Knicks, that's not a far reach for me. So I think that's a good nugget right there.
And Kyrie, not as a kid, but as an adult, wants to be the man. And sometimes life is unfair. And after he hurt his knee, guess what? Jason Tatum is Boston's adopted son. Jason Tatum is their favorite guy. Jason Tatum is the guy that those fans have already attached themselves to.
Unless LeBron gets there.
Well, sure, but the Kyrie thing, Kyrie wanted out of Cleveland in large part because
he didn't choose Boston.
He didn't choose Boston.
Right.
He had said the Knicks, he had said the Spurs, and he had oddly said the Minnesota Timberwolves, which I didn't totally understand, but he had said those three teams.
It said he can prove out his theory that the world's flat up there.
By the way, great. You got to read the New York Times interview where he doubles, triples, and then quadruples down on the world. Maybe not being round, but that's a story for another day.
All right. Oh, this is going to be a fun one to break down over the course of the next month and a half. Oh, thank you, Chris Carter. Coming up, how does Kevin Durant have it harder than LeBron James?
Oh, come on.
I promise you are going to want to hear what he has to say about that next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. NBA champ Steven Jackson joins the show.
Good to see you,
I'm
brother.
back.
Love having you here.
That's a strong look there, man. That's a strong look. Glasses.
Means necessary.
Goatee. I see it. J's on my feet. He ain't playing today. Okay.
Not at all.
We have a lot to go over with you today, Steven Jackson.
Respect my brother.
We'll start with KD. Kevin Durant won his second title and second Finals MVP in the last two seasons with Golden State. And while many consider him the second best player in the world behind LeBron, Durant will tell you his role is harder than you might think. He said, quote, "I feel like it's easy to be the best player when you don't have any good players around you. I feel like it's harder to stand out when you have great players around you. I pride myself on standing out wherever I am. I pride myself on working hard wherever I go. And I feel like these guys embraced me, and I feel like I'm a warrior." All right, Steven, let's start with you. Is KD right?
I think he's definitely right. It's definitely harder to be the best player on the team when you got guys like Clay, when you got guys like Steph, another guy who's won 2 MVPs on your team, that's won a championship without you. It's definitely harder to be that man. I know when I played in Atlanta, my team wasn't that good, and it was easier for me to be the leading scorer and lead the team. When I got to Indiana, I had Jermaine O'Neal, I had Ron Artest, I had Reggie Miller. I had other guys that upped my level, but it was harder for me to be the leading scorer, being the best guy every night, because I had other talented guys on my team. So it definitely makes you better, but it's definitely harder to be the best player every night on your team when you have other guys that could be the same.
Yeah, he's right about that part, but that's only part of the question. But can you take this ragtag bunch of bad news bears, can you take them to the finals? Now, on a nightly basis, yeah, because you're the most talented. It's easy to get the most rebounds. It's easy because they don't have the talent. But, KD, could you go to Cleveland, all right, and do what LeBron did, play 82 games? Absolutely.
It's the East. You never know.
Oh, come on.
You never know.
For one, I know he's not going to play 82 games, all right? I know he's not going to get through those 3 series, all right? He's not going to get through the Pacers with that team down. No support. Okay, because KD doesn't play make enough to build support that team.
He's not a playmaker.
He doesn't dribble the ball enough. He doesn't have the overall endurance to be able to play those type of minutes. So I understand, KD, what you're saying. Yeah, for a one game, yeah, of course it's easier to get 30 points because there's 30 points to be had because you don't have the scores.
Well,
but to do that for 82 games, no.
Listen,
no, he's wrong.
If he's trying to compare himself to... Well,
is he comparing himself to LeBron?
Well,
I think he's just answering the question.
Okay, but it was... listen, Kevin Durant is doing an interview, and he talks about his teammates and how hard it is to stand out right after LeBron had said it's easier for those guys because they don't have the pressure to bring it every single night because you have these other great players. If KD's talking about being a good stats, bad team guy, I agree with him. The guys that we know all across the league. Kevin Love when he was in Minnesota.
Yes.
Right. Like, of course, every NBA team is going to score at least 95 points a game, no matter how bad you are. So if you're on a terrible team and you're the best guy, it's easy to get numbers, and those numbers don't necessarily translate to if you're on a great team. I agree with that. But if we're doing a LeBron, who has the harder job, LeBron or Durant? It's one of the silliest questions I ever heard. And the idea, like, Kevin, here's the benefit. Here's why your job is easier than you're making it sound. You can go 6 for 17 in Game 6, a closeout game against Houston, and your team can win by 20-plus points. You can go 7 for 17 in the closeout game of the NBA Finals, and your team can win by 1,000 points. You can be great.
Let's go game one.
But that's not the question, though. The question is, it's harder to be the best player on his team.
But it's not. But
it is. When you have other great players, it's definitely harder. It's not hard for LeBron to be the best player when you got Jordan Clarkson.
No, we're talking about the best player in the world.
He says, I feel like it's easy to be the best player when you don't have good players around you. That's the exact quote. I feel like it's harder to stand out when you have great players around you.
It is.
But that's okay. So that
part is true. Yeah. But you can't put the two comments together.
But that's only true if the NBA, and I didn't know it, outlawed double teaming. It's only true if the NBA all of a sudden your teammates can't set you up for success. That is it would only be true if everyone around you is a gunner. Like, oh, it's hard to have the great player in Draymond who helps you out defensively, who looks to move the ball. It's hard to have Steph and Clay who make it so you can never be double teamed. It's a ridiculous
I have a question. Who for Golden State did the game get harder once they got Kevin Durant?
Right.
Because to me, all of them got easier, from the coach to Steph, to Clay, to Draymond. Draymond then gave up shooting.
The hardest job is fitting in to a championship team. They already had that team with KD, so it was harder for KD to fit in.
Not when you're the second best player in the world, Steve Jackson.
It's harder for you to fit in on a championship team already. That team when you go into a championship, regardless who you are, this team that already won a championship.
Is it hard to fit on a championship team?
So all you can do is make it worse.
Or hard to fit on a team that already has skilled players that are going to want the ball.
A team that won a championship, regardless who you are, when you come into that team that's already won a championship, you have to fit in. They're not going to change anything for you.
Now, I do agree with you on that. You do have to fit in. But this is still not absent of what he's saying about LeBron. So these are two different conversations. But when you join Golden State and they won 73 games, yeah, you have to fit. But this is the thing. They are trying to make you fit in. The offense is made for you to fit in. They play a style that they need 3 shooters. So it's not like you're playing in a half-court offense that's going to bog it down. We're going to pass the ball around like San Antonio does. No, they're not going to do it. They're going to get out. They're going to play with pace. And, man, you can shoot the ball. Everyone on that team got a green light for the most part.
So I just want to make sure I understand it. I want to make sure I'm following the logical path here. The place LeBron could choose this offseason that would be the hardest for him is Golden State. The second hardest would be Houston, and the easiest would be if he signed up to go play with Dallas, right? Like, is that what we're actually saying here? That playing with good players makes your job harder? It doesn't make any.
But I think we misinterpreting the question. It's not if your job's going to be harder. It's harder to be the best player on that team with other better players.
But there's no better. But here's the thing. I would agree with you.
It's easy for LeBron because nobody's good there.
Look, if we look, we look at it this way, all right? Based on all the NBA teams, is it easier for the top 5 players, LeBron and Westbrook, to be the best players on their team? Yes, but that's not what we're talking about, though. We're talking about the best player in the world. We're not talking about those guys on their team because
every team Durant goes to except for LeBron's team, he's going to be the best player. I would agree that it could be difficult for the 13th best player in the world, who was the best player on his own team, to then join up with Golden State, right? Like, it was Kevin Love. I understand why people would say, man, everything was revolved around him in Minnesota, and now he's got to fit in. Chris Paul, similarly. But when you go somewhere and you're immediately the best guy, things are going to revolve around you, like, at least in my eyes.
Some nights, though, he wasn't the best guy.
Right, we understand that. But based on KD's personality, you've been around this league, man. You know this league. You got information on players, organizations, stuff that you don't even say on TV, man. All right? Like, you know this stuff. You cannot tell me, you know Kevin Durant. Him going to Golden State was such a relief for him. He is not a killer. He is not a guy that every day he want to wake up and just go take a guy's heart out. No, the best place for him was to go to Golden State. Would you not agree, based on his personality, that that was true?
I only look at it as
even though you didn't
winning
like
and losing.
It.
I look
but
at
look at his personality.
losing.
Look at his personality, man. Look at what he wants to do.
I can't say that.
Well, what would you say? What would have been a better place? His best place would have been to stay OKC.
Only thing I can say is he wanted to win. That's all I can say. And I will never go against anybody because I know too many guys that come into the game for what it can do for him and not about winning. I respect the man regardless if he's the best player in the world, he's the last one on the bench. His decision is made off winning games. And if you're playing basketball, if you come into the NBA, that should be your goal, to win. So I can never knock him for that.
I just want to read one other quote quickly from this same story to back up Cece's point. All I want to do in my life while I'm healthy is work on my game, enjoy the game, and not worry about nothing else. This place gives me that. This is the best place for me to just play ball, work on my game, play ball, not care about other bleep that normal NBA superstars are supposed to care about. He's admitting it all right there. Everyone else can care about being the best guy. Everyone else can care about...
That's not what he means.
No.
That's not what he means.
No, what he means there is all I care about is getting my basketball level to the highest level possible in a city that I'm comfortable in and winning. Everyone else can care about...
I don't care about the dress code. I don't care about guys dressing up.
Exactly right.
I want to be me. I want to do good things off the court and play basketball and be great. I care about anything
100%.
And I don't have a problem with KD. I thought KD went to the right place, but it was based for him.
We wouldn't have made that decision.
Right.
No. We wouldn't have. I wouldn't have.
Exactly.
No, I wouldn't have.
And that's what, when he says, I don't care about the normal bleep that normal NBA superstars are supposed to care about, he's saying, I don't care about your competitive balance.
Right.
I don't care about your legacy conversations.
How you feel about me.
I don't care about how you feel about me. It also, to me, means he's never leaving. I thought there was a chance he might leave.
He said that. He's never leaving.
I'm too comfortable.
He's too comfortable. He's never leaving.
And I can get paid.
Right.
All right, Stephen, stick around. Coming up, how much blame does LeBron deserve for injuring himself? Wait till Stephen weighs in on that next on First Things First. Back here with Stephen Jackson on First Things First. The NBA season is now in the books. Normally time for dust to settle and ultimate frisbee to take center stage. Oh, but wait. We are nowhere near done with how this season ended. Over the weekend, the Warriors won their third NBA title in 4 years, sweeping the Cavaliers. And then 5 minutes after that, LeBron James came to the press conference with a soft cast on his shooting hand. Reports surfaced he punched a whiteboard after that very frustrating Game 1 loss. Stephen, how much blame does LeBron deserve for this?
I mean, if he still can have the series he had with a broken hand or whatever he done to his hand, then they should have never even said nothing. Like, I don't even know why would it even be a subject right now. Like, or why would he even come out and talk about it? The series is over. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't go back and start over because your hand's hurt. You know, just leave it alone. I think it wasn't a good decision by the guy who you expect to carry your team, knowing how the biggest burden he had and how much he had to carry his team. For him to do that, that was real selfish. You know, a lot of people saying LeBron was been selfish during the season as far as his stats and all this stuff. Well, punching the board, knowing how much your team needs you.
With your shooting hand.
I think that was real selfish. But to me, it really didn't look like it affected his game at all. I mean, he was still dominant. At times, I think his heart was questioned. You know, I don't know if he punched his heart against the whiteboard because at times it looked like his heart was hurting. You know, he wasn't competing, wasn't giving the same energy that we normally see from LeBron. So I just think it was too late to come out with. The series was over. Hey, if you hurt your hand, just say you hurt it, but don't bring it up and try to make it the topic of taking away from getting swept.
Right. Going into Game 2, especially after what happened at the end of Game number 1, I thought LeBron's philosophy was going to be get to the hole as much as possible, try to draw a double team, but I'm going to be a scoring threat in the series, which resulted in him getting 51 in game number 1. But in games 2, 3, and 4, I didn't have any information that his hand was hurt. I thought he was still trying to go to the hole, still trying to force it. But then after hearing about the injury in game number 4, it took me back. Now, my mind had to go back on the games, but like, man, he didn't shoot a lot of jump shots.
Stop shooting jump shots.
So now I have to look at the results in the numbers. Like, I didn't know before I saw the soft cast. But then after that, and sitting and talking to Nick this morning, it was I was shocked by the lack of jump shots and the lack of jump shots he made in games 2, 3, and 4, Steve.
You're smiling.
Yeah, I mean.
Now, you're not an excuse guy.
Not at all.
No, we're not trying to make an excuse.
Here's the thing. Let me, because I know.
After you go 51-8-8, your starting point go out and miss a free throw. Your starting shooting go out and make a bonehead play, and you do everything you can to win game 1. You had a great game, and you don't win it. That took a lot out of him. He quit. I don't want to hear nothing about no hand or none of that. He quit. He knew he was playing against a better team. After game 1, he knew he was beat. Point blank, bruh. It had nothing to do with his hand. If your hand, hey, okay, we was talking about Steph. His ankle. He was out there still playing.
Agreed.
You're not hurt. So you're not hurt, LeBron. Just leave it alone.
Well, okay, well, hold on.
We can't make excuses. They got swept, okay? 4-0. Take it like a man. Go home, bruh. Heal your hand up. Have a great offseason. Figure out where you're going. But do not make that as an excuse. Y'all got swept by a better team. The whole world knows that.
Okay, a couple things, Stephen. First of all, on the injury. You get no pass for a self-inflicted injury.
At all.
You get, listen, you get, and even if it's not self-inflicted, one of the great things about LeBron is his durability. He's never missed a playoff game, so we can't have it both ways.
And his self-control.
Right, so you don't get a pass for a self-inflicted injury, and he was out there anyway, and so I agree with you on that. But you also, the audience needs to know, and you need to know, LeBron did not leak this information. LeBron's people did not leak this information. LeBron didn't want this information out there because he thought it was embarrassing that he broke his damn hand.
So show up for one more press conference. 30 more seconds go without the cast on it.
Exactly.
The information was, hold on.
Okay, now Nick
the information was out there before LeBron got to the press conference. So he's going to be asked about the hand. There are pictures out there before he gets to the press conference of his right hand swollen and his left hand fine. Like, again.
That was clear.
So the idea that he put it out there or the soft cast is why it was out there is just not factually accurate. Now, it's not a pass, but I want to, when did he quit is my question.
After game 1.
So in game 2, 29, 9, and 13, or in game 3, the 33-point triple-double, both those games shooting around 50%. He had quit.
I mean, he knew he couldn't win. He knew he couldn't beat Golden State. I didn't say he didn't go out there and play, but he knew as a team they couldn't beat Golden State in this series. He knew that after game 1. After having all those heroics he did in game 1, he knew.
But also now, Steve, now you got to give him credit too. He also knew that they blew a game. So if there was a time to have doubt, because going into the series, I don't care who you are, I don't care what type of faith, I don't care what type of scriptures you're reading. When you're facing Golden State, you realize, man, we are up against it. So LeBron, like, he knew that. But when you blow the first game, you've been playing this team 3 years in a row, and you give them, so yeah, I can expect he's human, but he didn't give up after that. Well, and the numbers
what he did was he stopped shooting jump shots. In the first game, he was 7 of 16 on shots from 10-plus feet. He took 16 jump shots in the first game. In games 2, 3, and 4 combined, he took 19 of them. His average distance from the hoop on shots from games 1 through 4 went like this: 12.5 feet to 10 feet to 5 feet to 4 feet. That was